Yes. So today we're working on Jay's E46 M3. We just got a rewrapped steering wheel from a guy over on an eBay store. We'll link his name in the video. How much did you pay for this? 200 bucks?
$200.
So pretty good price. He sent out the wheel without us having to send back the old one, so that's kind of nice. That means that the car is not going to be down. And just from the workmanship and everything, he includes the buttons, in this case the SMG paddles. It was actually a really smoking deal, so we figured we couldn't pass up on an install video of doing this. So we're pretty much going to show you how to install this wheel. You are going to be working with the airbag system, so again, always make sure you disconnect the battery. But pretty simple install, so let's get to it. So these are the tools you're going to need to do this install. Nothing too crazy. You're going to need a 10mm wrench or a ratchet with a socket on to disconnect the negative battery terminal on the car, so that way you can work around the airbag safely. A flathead screwdriver to pop the airbag out of the steering wheel. If you are transferring your buttons and SMG paddles and all that, you'll need a 10mm, I mean not a 10, you'll need a T10 and a T20 Torx bit to get those off. And then you'll need a 16mm to get the actual wheel off. And that's pretty much it. Pretty simple, don't really need too many tools. So with that being said, it's time to get installing. Since we're going to be working with the airbag system, it's always good practice to disconnect the battery and let it sit for about 10 minutes before you attempt any kind of repairs or you're working around that area. So just on the E46 M3, it is back here underneath this panel on the passenger side. You just got to lift it up and disconnect the negative and you're good to go. So as you can see, this is the new wheel. It's been pre-assembled with all new, new buttons pretty much compared to the old ones, SMG paddles. So we don't actually have to transfer anything over. We're gonna demonstrate how to take the airbag out with this one because it'll be a little easier to show off. In essence, you're gonna be basically working on the back of the steering wheel. As you can see, there's one hole right here, and there's also one hole right here. What you're gonna be doing is grabbing some kind of flathead screwdriver, as I'm using right now. You're gonna prod this into that hole like that, and then you're gonna feel around for something that feels kind of springy. You'll kind of feel like it's a wall that you're hitting, and what you'll be actually moving is this rod right here, this kind of like a snap ring that holds the actual airbag module in place. So when you actually push on it, as you'll see right now, if I can get it to go, you'll see that it actually moves. So that's actually what you're going to be moving and pushing out of the way in order to get the airbag to pop out. So that's kind of just a visual of what actual part you're pushing and moving to get this airbag system out. That way it's a little easier to kind of see what you're working with, but that's pretty much how to do it. If this is your first time, just be really patient and try to get these out. But once you kind of get the tab popped out, you'll kind of notice the airbag start to kind of slowly pop right out, and you might need to gently pry it just to get it started to come off. But once you do, it'll kind of just fall out like this. Just be very careful. You don't want to put any strain on these wires. To get them off, you're gonna have to just unclip these connectors right here. They usually just come right off. Usually you'll have to pry up like that, and then the connector comes off. Same thing, you can see this little thing right there. Just grab a flathead, kind of pry up the locking tab, and then just pull straight off. And when you're storing this, make sure you store it away from you with the module facing up, just in case if this thing actually does discharge, it'll just blow the bag out. If you have it like this, it ends up becoming a projectile, so make sure you store it face up. The next step, if you were to start taking this wheel off, is to get this all off. It's a 16mm bolt right here. I'm gonna be kind of cheating and using my impact gun to get that off. Just kind of like that. I'm using a long socket, and all you would need to do is essentially just zap it right off. And usually they're never stuck, but if they are, give it a couple good taps on each side. Make sure you leave the bolt in so that way when you pull the wheel out, it doesn't smack you in the face, but you just kind of get it loose. And then next we'll just have to disconnect these connectors right here on top. They just come right out. And the wheel comes right off. Since our new wheel has got new buttons and all that stuff, we actually don't need to transfer anything over. But if you were to have to transfer your buttons and your garnish plate and the buttons, everything over, you've got a T20 bolt right here. You got one right there, one right here, and then you've got two right here. This entire piece with the buttons come out as a single piece once you get those loosened. And also you'll have a T10 bolt right here holding this ground strap. Make sure you get that off before you get everything off as well, and then all this will come out and give you access to remove the SMG paddle shifters if your car has it. And I believe those are T20s, and it would just be the reverse of assembly. You would just transfer thing over, make sure you get your ground strap bolt back on and all the hardware back on. You're pretty much good to go. So at this point, since ours has the new buttons, all we have left to do is just put the new wheel on, connect the connectors, and also put the airbag back on, and we're pretty much ready to go. And when you take the wheel off, make sure you keep this steering wheel angle sensor and clock spring assembly as straight as possible. You don't want to be moving it too much. Sometimes BMWs do get a little finicky and they will throw DSC steering wheel angle plausibility codes because of this not being completely straight. So just make sure you get this back on. You keep it as straight as possible on, and then when you put the wheel back on, make sure it doesn't move too much. And when you're putting the wheel back on, if you notice, there's a really small little notch right here. This is the straight ahead position. It essentially lines up with everything down the middle. And if you look inside the wheel right here, the actual splines, you can see that there's a notch right there as well. I don't know if you can see my finger, but like right there, this pretty much lines up with that notch right there on the steering column. That way you know that the wheel's going back on straight. As you can see, the wheel's back on. We've got the notches and the lines lined up right here on the steering column and on the steering wheel itself. There's also two little grommets that feed into these two holes right here, so you want to make sure those are in as well. Once you got those on, it's pretty much you're just gonna have to connect all your connectors back on. So the yellow connector right here, this is gonna be your airbag connector that goes right in the center, right there. You've got this red one if you have an SMG car, it goes right here, over here to the left. And then last but not least, you have this white one, and that goes all the way over to the right. So once you've got the wheel back on, all your connectors plugged in, it's time to torque these, the 16mm bolt right here. It's 46 foot-pounds according to the new TIS.info website. So once you torque this thing on, then we can get on to installing the airbag. So now that we got the bolt torqued down, it's time to put the airbag back on. It's just the two connectors here. So what you'll be doing is the black one goes to the black right here, and it can only go one way. You can't go any other way. And then make sure you press the locking connector down. And then the yellow one goes like this. Make sure you press the locking connector down, and you're pretty much gonna rest the airbag module back into its home. There's two tabs that you need to get. You got to get these two black tabs into these little metal bars that we were pressing on earlier to get the airbag out. So make sure you line those back up. You'll hear it click, and you'll know it's seated right when you see that it's pretty even all the way around. And that's pretty much it. So the next thing we need to do is hook the battery back up, check for any codes. If the battery's been disconnected, there should be no airbag codes, but then we'll also check to make sure all the buttons work and the paddle shifters work. And then that pretty much wraps up the install on the steering wheel. So that that pretty much wraps up the steering wheel install video. Pretty easy, as you can see. Wasn't very difficult, didn't take too many tools. This is actually a really nice rewrapped steering wheel. It's basically the OEM steering wheel, but it's a little more thicker on the bolsters. And it's got this perforated stitching and the tricolor M logo stitching up here. Overall, it's a really good product and I highly recommend it. Again, we'll have the seller's link in the description below if you're interested in getting a wheel like this. But yeah, we went from that old tattered wheel to this new, you know, nice and perforated leather steering wheel that we can, you know, firmly grip. So yeah, it was a really good buy. So that pretty much wraps up the video. So again, as always, we thank you guys for watching the videos. We just hit 200 subscribers recently, so hopefully we can hit a couple more. Many thanks to all the support and love that you guys mentioned in the comments. So if you want, make sure to hit God, I'm blanking out. Make sure to hit the like, rate, comment, subscribe button.
Like and subscribe.
Everything that you can do. Throw some more comments. If you have any video suggestions, make sure to let us know if you want to see something in particular on this car or on the E60 M5. But other than that, I mean, that pretty much wraps up the video. So stay tuned for the next video and we'll see you guys next time.